Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Peter Celentano. I'm the event coordinator here at the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. Today's webinar, Weaving the Future, Advancing Black Business Ownership and Economic Equity, is part of AEO's Equity and Opportunity for All series. We're thrilled to have all of you with us today to celebrate Black History Month and discuss the vital role of Black entrepreneurs in fostering economic equity and sustainability. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Today's session will be recorded and will be shared with you in an email afterwards. Expect that by tomorrow morning. Feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions for our panelists. We'll aim to address as many as possible in the chat, either during the event or in a follow-up email afterwards. And to ensure a smooth experience for all our panelists and for all of our guests and attendees, please remain on mute throughout the event. We'll also be sharing links to key resources and the recently released Black Business Ownership fact sheet in the chat during the session, so be on the lookout for that. And feel free to click them as we go through and save them for afterwards. And we are ready to get started. To begin, it is my honor to introduce Natalie Madera-Cofield, President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, AEO. And let me bring her to the front of the screen now. Under Natalie's leadership, AEO has been a leading advocate for underserved entrepreneurs across the country, creating pathways for equitable economic opportunity. Without further ado, welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon to all for joining us today. As Peter mentioned, my name is Natalie Madera-Cofield, and I have the honor of serving as the President and CEO of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Weaving the Future, Advancing Black Business Ownership and Economic Equity. This event is part of an ongoing Economic and Opportunity for All series, serving as a vital platform to discuss economic equity and opportunity within the small business community that AEO has produced since last year. Today, more importantly, it is being held in honor of Black History Month. Since our founding in 1991, AEO has been the leading national association for small business development in the United States, representing organizations and providers that support the nearly 33 million small businesses in the country and counting. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to create economic opportunity for underserved entrepreneurs across the United States of America. We support nearly 2,700 organizations, ranging from business service support organizations to lenders, by providing advocacy, research, and capacity building resources. One of our flagship initiatives, the Business Health Assessment Tool, addresses critical financial and operational gaps for small businesses. Since our founding nearly 35 years ago, we have been responsible for informing and advocating policies that have provided more than $1 billion in resources to entrepreneurial ecosystems across the United States of America. Our partnerships with government agencies, corporate entities, and philanthropic organizations are crucial to advancing the needs of small businesses across the nation. In addition to our day-to-day efforts and our Equity and Opportunity for All series, AEO hosts impactful events like AEO Talks, regional councils, and various conferences, as well as our Data to Dialogue research conversation series. As it relates to today's webinar, it offers a platform to discuss economic equity and opportunity in the Black business community. It's essential to recognize and support the remarkable contributions of Black entrepreneurs. Black-owned businesses play a crucial role in driving community development, contributing to over $207 billion annually to the national economy. Black entrepreneurs are a growing force in both rural and urban areas, leading businesses across various sectors such as retail, agriculture, arts, and technology. Since 2012, the number of Black-owned businesses has grown by 34%, more than the overall business growth rate in the United States of America. Further emphasizing the contributions that Black business owners make, AEO is proud to release a fact sheet on Black business ownership. This publication highlights the contributions of Black-owned enterprises, the unique challenges that Black entrepreneurs face, and the support systems necessary to continue growth and success. If you haven't already, I encourage you to download the fact sheet by visiting our website at research.aeoworks.org. At AEO, we're committed to advocating for Black entrepreneurs, ensuring they have the resources and supports that they need to thrive. We invite all stakeholders, policymakers, and members of the public to join us in these efforts. By supporting Black entrepreneurs and all entrepreneurs, we can help create a more inclusive and equitable business environment for everyone. To get today's webinar started, it's my pleasure to introduce AEO's Senior Research Associate, Dr. Lori Smith, who will share a research presentation on the current landscape of Black business ownership and set the stage for an insightful discussion with leading experts and advocates. Lori, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie, for the introduction, and thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. It's an honor to be here with such an incredible group of speakers, and our expert panel will cover a lot of ground today. So I'll just start by presenting some key data points and some context to set the stage for that discussion. And my hope is that after our discussion, we'll all leave with some advice to empower Black entrepreneurs in our communities and to sustain recent gains through business support services, access to capital, advocacy, and more. So first, you can find more data, again, in our recently released fact sheet. And for additional insights, please also visit our research website at AEO, where we have reports and interactive dashboards with business data across geographies and for various groups. And we always want to develop, new resources and tools to support your work. So we would absolutely love to hear your ideas and what you all would like to see in terms of data and research to support your work. So please reach out to us at research@aeoworks.org to talk about anything related to research. Now, the main takeaways of my presentation are, first of all, to highlight the impressive growth of Black-owned businesses and their incredible impact on communities across the country. And I'll show that there are still some significant gaps, and then we'll turn to the panel to discuss what is needed to address these gaps and to empower Black entrepreneurs and support broad-based growth across the US. But first, I'll start by presenting some key findings from past AEO research that has really helped shape the agenda for where we are today. So first, let me start with an introduction to AEO's Tapestry reports. Our Tapestry reports have sparked essential conversations within AEO and beyond. Their insights have influenced policy and business support programs, including many pilot programs at AEO in recent years. Our seminal report, which was released in 2017, titled The Tapestry of Black Business Ownership in America, did two key things. First, it showcased the incredible resilience and the untapped potential of Black businesses. So while it pointed out significant gaps, like the wealth gap, the credit gap, and the trust gap, it also focused on strategies to address these gaps, and then what's possible if we address these systemic barriers. And second, it provided crucial statistics that still continue to shape and drive today's work on Black business ownership. So for instance, it showed that entrepreneurship is a key pathway to economic mobility, with business owners generally having 2.5 times the wealth of their employed peers. But the difference is even more pronounced for Black entrepreneurs. So Black business owners have 12 times the wealth of their employed counterparts, which means that business ownership can play a really important role in closing racial wealth gaps. And importantly, this analysis was a sophisticated analysis, not based on a comparison at one point in time, but a longitudinal analysis that was looking at otherwise similar individuals at the same starting point, looking at one who started a business and one who didn't. And the one who started their business grew more wealth, and they grew it faster than their employed counterpart, accounting for other characteristics. And then the report also showed that Black business owners hire 1 in 5 Black employees. And if just 15% of Black-owned firms hired one more employee, that would add $55 billion to the US economy. And the report then called on service providers, policymakers, and investors to tackle 3 main objectives. First, increasing the Black business ownership rate. Second, growing the number of firms that hire employees. And third, scaling up existing businesses. So where are we now? Well, since the pandemic, we've seen a surge in reporting about Black business ownership, and we've really seen tremendous growth in Black-owned businesses. So where are we in terms of these objectives? So let's first consider the first objective from our seminal Tapestry report, which was increasing the business ownership rate. So given that the Black population is about 14% of the US population, would you expect Black business owners now represent 14% or more of all business owners? If you're thinking the answer is yes, Black business owners now represent 14% of all business owners, you're right. Data from the 2024 Entrepreneurship and the Population Survey shows that Black business owners do represent 14% of all business owners, and this is much higher than when surveys were run in the early 2000s. And this is right on par with the Black share of the population. This translates to an estimated 5 million Black entrepreneurs who provide more than 1.3 million jobs and contribute 207 billion to the US economy. Now, if any of you are following business ownership statistics closely, you might be surprised at this finding that there are approximately 5 million Black entrepreneurs, representing about 14% of business owners. And I will share that the Black business ownership rate is higher in nationally representative entrepreneurship surveys than it is in the census data. And that's because survey data are more comprehensive than census data. Census data exclude businesses without documented income. And census data also exclude businesses with revenues under $1,000 annually. So here is another way to look at the business ownership rate or ownership gaps. So we discussed how the Black population is about 14% of the US population, as shown in the gray bars here. And then in the dark blue bar, we see that Black businesses made up only 10% of all businesses in census data in 2021, which is the most recent year for which data are available on both non-employer and employer businesses. So looking at census data, I would say that Black entrepreneurs are more accurately under-recognized than underrepresented. And so this means that we need to continue to make better data collection a priority to better understand and serve all entrepreneurs. And this isn't just a challenge for Black entrepreneurs, of course, this is a challenge. Census data miss a wide range of entrepreneurs from different groups due to this challenge of not capturing businesses with lower revenues or without documented income. And so this is a challenge for entrepreneurship research and programs in general. But still, even from what we see in this survey data, this does reflect tremendous growth in Black entrepreneurship. Again, it represents a substantial change from the early 2000s. And as we will see in a moment, we're also seeing a substantial growth even when we look at census data. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge this significant milestone, which is a testament to the determination and ingenuity of business owners and the hard work of community lenders, minority financial institutions, and business support organizations. So here's another way to look at this tremendous growth. So since 2012, growth rates or the percentage change in the number of firms, employees, revenue, and pretty much any firmographic have been much higher for Black-owned businesses than for all businesses as a whole. And growth rates in revenue in particular have been much higher for Black-owned businesses than for any other demographic group since 2012. And again, this is all showing up in the most recent census data available for all businesses. So the larger point is just to illustrate that what we have been doing to mobilize resources in the ecosystem has been working. But the significance of Black business growth goes beyond just economic output, of course. This is also about supporting business owners who will hire and reinvest in their local communities, building an economy that truly works for everyone. So what additional impacts have we seen in the Black business community? Well, we already saw that Black business ownership is critical for creating employment opportunities for Black workers. But what about the creation of good jobs? It turns out that Black business owners are more likely to offer health benefits to employees than other business owners. And Black business owners offer profit sharing for employees at a significantly higher rate than other business owners, at more than twice the rate of other business owners. And this speaks to the importance of Black entrepreneurship in creating truly broad-based, equitable growth. And then finally, we always talk about community impact in our work. Here at AEO, and we have reason to believe that Black-owned businesses are strategically important for supporting broad-based, broader community development. And so last year, AEO partnered with Morgan at the University of Chicago to add questions to the entrepreneurship and the population survey, including questions about community impact. And I'm thrilled to share that indeed, this commitment to community shows up in the data. So last year, Black small business owners were much more likely to support local causes in their communities than other business owners. So more than half actively support local causes. And I know this will resonate with many of you as service providers who see this commitment to community in your work every single day. So what's the challenge? Well, first, a revenue gap persists, with white-owned businesses being 6 times more likely to generate over $250,000 in revenue than Black-owned businesses. And beneath this gap, of course, lies a host of structural barriers linked to discrimination and historical exclusion in lending, housing, and employment that limit the resources available to Black entrepreneurs today. We know that wealth begets wealth, and entrepreneurs with more starting capital generate higher revenues, are able to hire employees, and are more likely to scale. So put differently, this revenue gap reflects a missed opportunity. If Black business owners match the revenue of their white counterparts, we could add an extra $2 trillion to the US economy. And accessing capital is another persistent challenge. So there are a number of ways that we can look at this challenge with external financing, but here are 2 key ways. So looking at starting capital and denial rates. So Black entrepreneurs, like most entrepreneurs, use personal savings for startup capital. But owing to the racial wealth gap, Black business owners have less savings to start their businesses, and Black entrepreneurs are more likely to rely on expensive alternatives like credit cards. And then Black entrepreneurs report being denied credit at about twice the rate of white-owned firms. So while Black entrepreneurs are playing a really outsized role in the business community, their impact could be even greater with increased access to small business credit. And now let's look at accessing support and resources. So last year, we saw that Black entrepreneurs reported greater challenges accessing resources and support than other entrepreneurs. And this holds across many different dimensions of support. Interestingly, if you look at the bottom here, there isn't really a significant difference in access to educational materials, but we see that business owners who are less likely to come from family business backgrounds, like many Black entrepreneurs, are more likely to report challenges accessing support in their family and networks. And taken together, these findings point to the importance of personalized consulting and support for Black entrepreneurs. But ultimately, the point of all of these findings is that still, if we can better mobilize resources to support Black business owners today and to make sure that our programs truly work for everyone, the potential is incredible. So to delve deeper into these issues and solutions, we are fortunate to have an esteemed panel of experts with us today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our panel moderator, Nicole Elam, who will guide us through this important discussion. Nicole Elam is President and CEO of the National Bankers Association, or NBA, the premier trade association and voice for the nation's minority financial institutions. She is the youngest president and CEO since the NBA's founding in 1927. Nicole joined the NBA in May 2021 from JP Morgan Chase & Company, where she was vice president and government relations manager, developing public policy positions and advocacy strategies in Washington, D.C. In this role, she also managed the national engagement strategies and led efforts on the firm's commitment to invest $30 billion over 5 years to advance racial equity and drive inclusive economic growth. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lori, for your kind introduction. And I would be remiss if I did not thank the extraordinary leader of AEO, Natalie Madeira-Cofield. Natalie, we need leaders like you for such a time as this. So thank you for being the voice of innovation for entrepreneurship and small businesses. Thank you for who you are and what you do every single day. Now, I am honored to be here with this incredible group of panelists who all share a common interest in economic equity and entrepreneurship. So I want to jump right in. Let's start by introducing ourselves. Could each of you briefly share your name, your role, and a bit about your organization? Stephanie, let's start with you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stephanie DeVane, and I serve as Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Business Development here at the National Urban League. Under the leadership of our President and CEO, Mark H. Morial, the National Urban League is a historic civil rights organization with a mission of economic empowerment, equality, and social justice. In 2014, recognizing that a key element of economic empowerment was the creation, growth, and sustainability of small businesses, we established the Entrepreneurship Center program to build business management skills and provide access to vehicles for growth and scale. And to that end, through our Urban League affiliates across the country, We create an entrepreneurial mindset, helping businesses to understand characteristics and developing skills where they can be set up for success through our coaching. We help to have businesses, we meet them where they live by providing customized educational programs that are based on an assessment of their existing skill level, and that's through training. And we help businesses to set realistic and achievable goals. We continuously track their progress, and we refine them as needed through our mentoring. Our goal really is economic empowerment through job and wealth creation in underserved communities. And by focusing on acceleration and growth of these underrepresented businesses and entrepreneurs, we move businesses from solopreneurs to multi-employer firms. We create jobs. We help them access affordable and appropriate capital and contract opportunities that increase their scale. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yes, thank you, Nicole, and thank you to AEO for pulling all of us together. I'm really excited about this conversation. So I'm Jessica Fulton. I'm the Vice President of Policy at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. We're America's Black think tank, so we're a research organization, right? What we do is focus on research and analysis and use it to help us understand the structural barriers that are blocking the full freedom of Black people in the United States. And so I think the reason why I'm so excited about this discussion is that one area where we know there are well-documented barriers to success are in the opportunity for Black entrepreneurs, Black people more broadly, to start, grow, and scale their businesses. Our research shows that about 1/3 of Black adults in the United States believe that owning a business is either very important or absolutely critical to their financial aspirations. So I'm excited about this conversation because like 1 in 3 is a really big number for me. I want to figure out how and continue to work with folks to make sure that Black people are able to be successful in entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Jessica. And last but certainly not least, Charles.
Good afternoon, and thank you so very much for including the National Black Chamber of Commerce in this very important and prestigious panel for a discussion that is so timely and so needed. I am the President and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce. We are celebrating our 33rd year in service with a mission for economic empowerment by way of entrepreneurism throughout the diaspora. We are premised upon advocacy, education, technical support for the training of all small businesses from a premise of a Afro-descendant business. We're very global in our scope, and we look at markets as one market, as a global market, but drilling down all the way to the capacity and the credibility or certifications that we can have within our immediate constituency membership. We have over 150,000 businesses in the US alone. We have chambers throughout South America, the Caribbean, Central America, certainly Africa, and even in Europe. We do have affiliations and partnerships with other types of entities and organizations that would include India and some of the other places that are less typical, such as Paris, France, a few other places, but it's very global in nature. We are a federation of chambers of commerce, which means that there are chambers that exist throughout really the globe, but particularly in the United States, that identify with a similar mission, with a focus and premise from Black business. And even though in the education and the premise from which we approach the marketplace, it very much embraces all aspects of commerce and development. We have expanded our access for capital procurement opportunities and policy advocacy. So we're reacting, pivoting, responding, really a situation analysis to real time, to what is reality for us all right now. And a lot of the comments and the vision that we represent right now is real time. is exactly here. We've had many years of traditional approaches, and now's the time that we're advocating to keep your archives, keep your library, but now is the time to be active on assessing and understanding what is reality and where are we doing right now. 3 years ago, we co-founded the National Alliance for Black Business, along with the National Business League and the World Conference of Mayors. Collectively, we are, in fact, the largest Black business association in the world. We have an annual conference that's in Atlanta. This past year, we had a keynote address with the president of Liberia, which drew over 3,000 people. So we're very much engaged, and we're very much in tune with the times that our opportunities exist in over the horizon, or looking beyond your immediate cultural or demographic disposition. So once again, I say thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Well, as you all can see, we've got the best and the brightest, and I don't want to waste any time. I want to see if we can get through as many topics as possible. And I want to start off by just identifying some key opportunities and obstacles. You know, today's conversation really centers on those things. From your perspective, what do you see as the most promising opportunity and the most critical challenge that Black entrepreneurs are facing right now? Stephanie, let's start with you.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And so one of the critical challenges that we face is certainly the rollback of DE&I policies and practices, which have done, quite frankly, a lot to create a more equitable playing field. And we know the statistics around, in this case, Black-owned business, but also minority-owned business. And Lori went through a very great presentation that brought a lot of that to the top of mind for everyone. And so I just want to say that is something that we really need to stay focused on, because what we do know is that Black business helps to drive the economy. It creates jobs, it creates wealth. It is not just a moral and a business imperative, but it is also providing a tremendous boost to the economy by providing a diverse set of businesses with different types of things that they can bring to the table, for lack of a better word. So I want to just make sure that we are continuing to focus on that. I would say really quickly, opportunities that I see. One of them is AI businesses, and we are really focused heavily on artificial intelligence and making sure that we don't get left behind, that our businesses not only understand how they can compete in artificial intelligence in terms of creating businesses that are helpful in that arena, but also that they are using AI in their businesses to help drive sales efficiencies and profits. So I'll stop there and let some of the other panelists weigh in.
Jessica?
Yeah, when I think of this question, I sort of zoom out to thinking about the broader economy and how the broader economy affects Black households more generally, right? So two big things come to mind for me when I think about sort of the climate that we need to make sure that Black business owners can be like as successful as possible. One is about just our general safety net, right? We don't have an economic system where people are, basically our benefits are tied to our work, right? You think about things like retirement benefits, whether you get paid sick days or parental leave or any kind of paid leave to take care of your family. We think about things like healthcare. Those are things that are generally tied to W-2 employment, that if somebody is going to decide that they want to go off on their own to start a business, they have to figure out how to self-finance that stuff, right? They have to put a plan in place to be able to handle those things for themselves and their families. And that's one piece that I think about a lot when I'm like, how do people even make that initial decision to sort of jump out and create a kind of business that can be successful and thriving? The other piece, I think Lori talked about this a little bit, and it's about wealth disparity, right? It's about lack of wealth for all the many reasons that might take more than this webinar, definitely would take more than this webinar to discuss. But I think entrepreneurship is really seen as an opportunity for Black people to build wealth, and I think that's really important. There's this other side of the coin that's about how a lack of wealth can limit your success in entrepreneurship, right? Because wealth gives you freedom. It gives you the opportunity to self-finance your startup. It gives you the opportunity to support your friends and family who might be raising money to go into to start a business. It also gives you the ability to sort of stick it out, right? To stay in the game for a little bit longer because you have that financial cushion. And so I think that for me, the opportunity is making sure that we create an economy where Black households are able to grow and build their wealth so that they can be successful achieving their financial goals, so that they can be successful going into businesses. I think one of the things that we heard a lot of data about the increase in number of Black businesses at the top of the webinar. One of the things that we highlighted in a report, a joint center report that we did with the Center for Economic Policy Research, is that Black wealth actually reached a record high in 2022. That happened right alongside business growth. And so I think there is some connection, and it maybe goes both ways. And so we need to, I think, be thoughtful about that and look for opportunities there.
That's a great point, Jessica. Charles, what are you seeing? What do you see as the biggest opportunity and the most critical challenge?
I'm taken aback and just want to kind of go, wow, because we see opportunity unlimited.
Mhm.
And when I say we, I'm looking from the lens of an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
We're often wanting to be categorized or labeled. Are you an investor? Well, all entrepreneurs essentially are investors. And this is something that we have to put in our own vocabulary when we talk internationally. They're all looking for investors, and we're very much representing the seeking of opportunity that translate into investment. So if you were to look at the emerging economies that once were third world, that's where everything from probably the number one valued or undervalued area that's going to be growth is probably in agriculture. Secondly, and always going to be ongoing, I can't underscore it enough, is the technology component. The other factor, and I have to applaud the AEO research team and the data that's been presented, because in fact, the largest and fastest growing area of entrepreneurs is Black women. And the successes that they're having, the technology is allowing for a much more of a level playing field. You have much more firepower and resource at your fingertips. And I heard one of the tech leaders talking about everybody's walking around with a supercomputer in their pocket, and the utilization of it. So part of the technical support, the technical training, all that has to do with using the tools that are readily available to you, which then becomes incumbent upon us to translate that and to make it available. Probably the number one challenge, and I'm sure that everybody would agree that, and certainly always and has always been access to capital. And access to capital and all the data that was just presented about where we can maybe look through a window but not necessarily get in the game or be qualified for loans or accessibility. One of the things that's happening right now is very dynamic, is that there is an expansion of the types of capital and looking at a more of a systemic approach to the final end result of, if this entity were to be financed, what would be the byproduct? What would come out of it? And that's where we just saw, I think, a graphic where if each business hired one person, the impact would be something like $50 billion or something like that. Well, the immediacy of gaining access to capital to undertake a project or expand your business is, in fact, you've got to bring in more people. And that's kind of like where I believe that we're all moving as if we're just in a river and the flow of the river is going in that direction. The other The other part is that we've got to tell our folks right now, now's not a time to, you don't have to panic. Things are changing, and yes, and they're different. And maybe what part of that you see it as to what the benefit of it is, or is it a disadvantage? One thing for sure, it's going to always represent opportunity. And opportunities will come about for those that are alert, that are engaged, that are at the forefront of whatever it is they do, whatever area or sector you see where it's going, and you're going to have probably foremost and first before a large entity, the smaller entities in a decision-making capacity can pivot. They can adapt new technology. They can come out and say, hey, I don't do this as an expertise, but I can partner or I can work with someone, which then defaults into our principles and teachings on what Booker T. Washington already laid out to us in a playbook. And that's part of when I mentioned the National Alliance for Black Business. It's based upon what we know, history, the teachings and our predecessors and our ancestors, and a case study on what is economic development, how does it happen. So we want to look at how do we support it? We want to look at the structural inequalities and what can we do in our advocacy and how we do it. And then we will advocate for equitable funding policies. And part of that will come out of maybe a competitive environment where the more you can adapt and scale down to a small business or to a situation and kind of get that ecosystem wheel to turn, it will yield results. It will come out with results. But thank you for the question. I think it's exciting. We could go on.
It is. It's so many great things that you said that we're going to continue to unpack. Jessica, you talked a little bit about what I would call the pandemic post George Floyd years from 2020 to 2024, where you saw an explosion of growth in Black wealth, and a lot of that wealth was driven by the increase of Black businesses. So Black business ownership can certainly be one of the key drivers of wealth creation, but if we're not careful, it can also be one of the biggest wealth depleters. And one of the reasons why it's a wealth depleter is because of access to capital. People are self-funding. They're not able to scale and grow and get to that next level of business. And so when you think about access to capital being so vital to business growth, and you think about the fact that 57% of Black business owners are denied loans compared to only 37% of non-Black business owners, access to capital and access to financial services is a significant barrier. So I want to talk about innovative solutions. When we think about access to capital, what are some innovative solutions that we've seen, like alternative financing or creative underwriting, that you've seen that are really making a difference for entrepreneurs? And this is open for anybody.
Could you reframe the question?
Yeah, what are some of the innovative solutions that you're seeing around access to capital? We all know and we hear that access to capital is a challenging thing, but we're starting to see more innovative things pop up. Alternative financing models like crowdfunding, fintech platforms. We're seeing a lot of these things that are popping up. Underwriting tools that take into consideration not just your credit score, but the cash flow of your business. What are some of these innovative things that we're seeing that may not be the silver bullet, but could potentially be part of the solution to allow for greater access to capital for Black business owners?
I'll be happy to jump in. There is, you mentioned it, one, we're all as citizens and just audience at large and public, we've seen what has happened and the capacity and capabilities of elements like crowdfunding. Well, as it matures and as it's gone about, it's now kind of crossing that threshold or meeting a threshold where that's an equity position. Mm-hmm. That is, in fact, a form of investment in terms of what do you get for it. One of the areas in which we're focused on has to do with the incubation and the pathways towards IPOs, initial public offerings, mm-hmm. and having to be able, that is a concept that is really highly regulated, very structured, very formal, and the backbone, the cornerstone of American economics, really global economics for that matter. So there's legislation that is upcoming. It's called the Main Street Growth Act. and it will allow for smaller entities, more, I'll use the word dynamic entities, to be able to meet the regulatory the constraints so that we can offer IPO type of opportunities for systemic or industrial type investment. It will it will have a system where a large company can invest in a smaller company and still maintain the ownership or the autonomy, where there's some equity or some interest involved with it, and maybe that will reduce some of the hesitancy for a company to be open to working with other entities. In addition to that, there is something we're looking at right now that we want to understand better, but there was legislation, let's say in the past 5 years, for community development. I think it's called the Community Development Act, and there is a funding program for that now called community development funds. And the community development is where a blighted or a inner city or whatever area, it could be just a disadvantaged area, was looked at and was incentivized for investment and development, except for the fact that the people that lived there or the people that had historically been the stakeholders didn't have the money. And so you had outside folks coming and investing. Well, the fund in this case is conceptualized in a way that you could be a business or you could have property in a, let's say, an inner city area, but you want to develop the block, or you want to bring in a factory or expand a restaurant, or any number of different things you could do. There's ways now that you can bring in investors and still maintain equity management and control over the whole development project, but it's expanded enough to allow for additional funding to come in. Then there is all sorts of types of dynamics going on with private equity, that they're a little bit more outgoing, to where there's been always historically, there's been factoring, that where if you can get the contract, or I think you have an opportunity for the contracting, that you can get funded based upon having to deliver the goods. A great example we would use with small businesses that we work with is an entity such as Walmart. Let's take Walmart, and you get an opportunity to supply them. You know, same thing with Target, Costco, all these other companies. And we're always pushing for buyer-supplier development and relationships. What happens if you get the contract? You've got to increase your inventory. You've got to increase production. Your packaging might have to change. You might have distribution issues. You have all sorts of things to now relate to as your business has an opportunity to grow. Well, there are entities that, in terms of factoring, that will finance it based upon the net. Where are you going? Well, how much you sell? What is your profit margins? All those elements. So we're getting a bit more micro focus in what we can approach. But overall, I would say the marketplace is responding and reacting to opportunity and looking at ways to maybe bridge gaps. And come up with solutions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie. I see you jumping in here.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in, but I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective. And what we've seen at the Urban League through our affiliate network and the entrepreneurship centers is that we go back to the very fundamental reason why businesses have such a hard time getting access to capital. A lot of it is a lack of business skills management. And we saw that during COVID, that businesses didn't have the proper tools. They didn't have the back office. They didn't have the administration. They didn't have the accounting. They didn't file for tax, all these things that they just didn't know how to do. But when it came to getting, whether it was PPP or other loans, they didn't have either the knowledge or the information at hand that they needed to be able to apply. And so what we think is really important, and I don't know if this is captured under this, but I would say one innovation we think we have is undergirding the capital with coaching and making sure that from a pre-loan standpoint, businesses understand what it takes to qualify for a loan. How do you get access to the capital? Well, do you have, your taxes done? Do you have financial statements? Is your credit score in place? We help them with credit counseling. and other methods to help their scores improve. And then we help them at the end of the time when they've gotten the loan with the post-loan counseling. How do you manage the debt so that you can pay all your bills and make sure that you're staying on top of the debt? Also, what is affordable and appropriate capital? So sometimes that's leading people to institutions that they might not be thinking of. It's not necessarily always your bank down the street. It might be a CDFI. It might be a minority depository institution that's going to be mission driven and going to be more appropriately based capital, because they understand where you are at in your trajectory, and they may not have the same types of regulations and requirements that you might have at a bank. And so making sure that our businesses have that coaching and that training and understanding has really been critical. And we've seen great success with that in all of our clients.
I love that, Stephanie. I think so often we talk about capital, 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 but capital is not the only thing that is needed to be successful. You also need coaching and you need customers. And so making sure that there's an entire ecosystem that supports them. So we've got 13 minutes left, and I've got 4 big meaty topics that I want to get to. And so I'm challenging my panelists. Let's get to it, and let's get in and out quickly with our responses. We've talked a lot about trends, right? There are a lot of emerging trends with the business community, whether it's alternative financing, it's the role of AI and technology, it's the growth of women-led entrepreneurs, it's the rise and fall of DEI funding for Black businesses, scaling challenges. We also see a trend of mergers over startups as a way to get into the small business ecosystem. So you all sit in different seats, and you may see these trends differently. How are these trends uniquely impacting the Black business community, and how does that influence their future economic impact?
I'll start with one thing that's been sort of mentioned a little bit is emerging technologies, thinking about how emerging technologies affect Black-owned businesses. And I think the thing that automatically comes to mind right now is like generative AI and how are entrepreneurs using AI. But I think there's another side of this, right? There's how are other decision makers using technology to make an impact on our communities. You think about the increase in like online lenders, kind of fintech companies that are using algorithms to make decisions about lending, which can be beneficial, right? So maybe they build in maybe they build tools into their algorithms to eliminate discrimination, but it also can be detrimental, right? We know that like bad data in is bad data out. And so if they are training their models on data that show that Black-owned businesses are less successful, then we may be harmed in those. And so I think thinking about emerging technologies, and that's one thing that we're really keyed in on, is understanding how they will affect Black-owned businesses.
Yeah, that's really good. Any other
If I
emerging?
could just jump in and
Yeah.
add to that really quickly. I know we're pressed for time, but in terms of fintech companies, one of the things that we've done at Urban League is work with like Responsible Business Lending Coalition, because we definitely understand that for a lot of our business, it's a never-ending cycle of taking these high rate debt. Hey, I saw a commercial that said I could get debt, and it just spirals out of control because that doesn't allow them to pay the principal and the interest, and it's just they don't get out of it. And so what we want to do is make sure that if they're looking at fintech solutions, they're looking at affordable, appropriate capital. Your need matches the time frame of the debt. That it's online, it's an easy application, but they're looking for you to have a particular credit score, and that you're not getting into a situation that is going to negatively impact your credit rating and your business. So I just wanted to throw that in really quickly.
Yeah.
I want to just put emphasis on technology evolution and development. That's very important, and it even helps with the what we'll call maybe financial literacy on a business type of level. The whole thing about applying for a loan or going through the process, it's its own world, and you do need mentoring, tutoring, or somebody that can just say, hey, wait a minute, here's how you do it, or your the financials that you have aren't commensurate with this, or the type of presentation, your PowerPoint deck. We're going to evolve into the whole, maybe the headline that came from DEI really didn't deal with what was going on with procurement and buyer-supplier relationships. That's really where it comes down to. That's where the rubber meets the road on, again, what we're talking about on the activities that your business may provide, whether it is a good or a service. That is going to continue. And whatever language, whatever vernacular, however it has to be postured, it's gonna happen. And we're committed to bringing the most competitive, the best service, the best pricing, the best quality of products that we can in a global aspect. And that's where things like contracting readiness, whether it be public or private sector, the trade readiness, how do you do business with somebody in another country, or do they have a product or service that we could benefit from here? All these other types of elements. So it's an excellent conversation, but it is very much in the here and the now.
So Charles, on this idea of the rise and fall of DEI, right? You've got all these executive orders, and some would argue that DEI is over. And because DEI is over, the opportunities for Black business owners are harder to find, whether it's capital, it's contracts, it's institutional support. It's a lot harder. I want to reframe that conversation. And I want to reframe the narrative so that supporting Black entrepreneurship is seen as an opportunity that benefits everyone. How can we begin to reframe this conversation from DEI to something that is more focused on economics or equity for all? Would love to hear folks' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think the first way is that we have to like say the words. If we're going to use the acronym, we have to say diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that people understand what we're talking about, right? Because the way that some folks are framing DEI right now is that it's discrimination, it's illegal, it's racist, right? All these things that we know that these policies are not. I would say they're
only for unqualified, Black and brown people. Yeah.
exactly. And I think there are two big things that I think about. One are all the arguments that were made earlier about how Black-owned businesses support our broader economic growth. We need to support everybody to be a competitive country, and so that's really important. One. The other piece is Black entrepreneurs they face challenges more acutely, but they're not the only people facing these challenges, right? Access to capital challenges face entrepreneurs across race and ethnicity. We just see them the most because of like a whole host of historical issues and racism in this country, right? And so I think addressing the challenges that Black entrepreneurs face, it almost inherently addresses the challenges that everybody else faces because they're not facing them to the same extent as us. And so I think about it as an opportunity to honestly level the playing field for all entrepreneurs.
I love that.
I want to be careful because I would throw a grenade in the room and just say, let's start from scratch of sorts. There is a reason why the public perception of culture and the impact it has on sales of products and consumption and what we're selling. There's a reason why the hip hop culture is so prevalent through our advertising medias and the products and the things and the appeal. That's because of the spending power. You're not going to be able to be in business and say, we're going to totally just do away or ignore or not acknowledge a potential customer. And that's where the rubber meets the road. So you got to be careful on who you alienate or how you do it. And we're not necessarily talking about boycotts as much. We're really much more in an integral situation analysis. And what is the business model? Mm-hmm. What happens if a certain business or entity has a product on the shelf, whether it's made here or China or wherever it is, or formulated here? Then who are the consumers that respond to it, and is it profitable for that entity to stock that particular product? So as we get into it, it's getting much more dynamic. These conversations and in these exercises, certainly we had it in the civil rights movement, where we were talking about whether it was garbage trucks or moving to the back of the bus or any of those things. Now it's gotten very, very dynamic, and we're looking at it. And if you want our business, then you've got to get into the details on how do we go about doing business. It's a little bit different. You can't just have us kind of peeping through the fence and we can come into your club or your situation and leave our money there. We're getting much more sophisticated. When we talk about what's going on in our communities, you know, whether it's a food desert, there's no grocery stores, or where do we live? Or now what's going on with all this construction of multifamily dwellings versus what's happened with the legacy real estate or ownerships and assets that we had. The conversation is getting more dynamic. That's
Yeah.
the point I'm making.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Speaking of conversations, if we had the opportunity to talk to this administration, to the SBA administrator, our local mayor, our state legislator, what should we be talking to them about? What should we be asking them to do to better support Black-owned businesses?
Bringing solutions.
Mhm.
Everybody's looking for a solution right now. We just happened to be on a call yesterday with some folks representing the new administration, and that was the question. You know, what's working, what's not working, and working for you. And we're not talking about a partisan objective or viewpoint. We're looking at where is a opportunity starting to catch hold. I would go further and to say to everybody, don't overreact too much until this 90-day process completes. And if you want to call it your situation analysis or whatever, we can debate it and criticize it, but we're not going to really know exactly where the disruptive target can be until we see which direction it's going in. That's why we got to be alert. We got to be doing business with each other.
Yeah,
You can pick up a customer right now, and it doesn't matter ethnically or demographically or culturally or whatever. It's like you see new businesses popping up. It's like we saw during the pandemic of all these businesses that went out of business, but then the spirit of the entrepreneur lived on. They came up with new ideas, and there are people that are coming out of this and thriving right now. So
you're absolutely
those
right.
are the winners because they were alert, they paid
Mhm.
attention, they did their homework, they talked to other people. When you go around the world right now, you're going to see many opportunities and things coming up that may not be in the news.
Yeah,
Not
you're
be
right.
in the news.
Jessica, can I give you we have our 2-minute warning. Go ahead,
Very
Jessica.
quick. I would say to ask for data, ask for the continued collection and disaggregation of data on consumers, right? Like there are attacks right now on the Census Bureau, which sits in the Department of Commerce, because businesses need to know a lot about, you know, what's going on with regular everyday folks. So I would just encourage people to advocate for continued data collection.
I love that. Stephanie, you've got the last question in a sentence or less. What is one thing that you want to leave with our audience? What's one thing that they should do? What's next?
So I think you should, this be the longest sentence ever, it'll be a run-on sentence, but I think that you should do all that you can to reach out and get assistance for your business. I think that includes everything from engaging in public policy and advocacy conversations. It includes researching and understanding capital access opportunities, whether they be IPOs, venture capital, loans at all different types of places. You should absolutely continue to seek training and coaching to assist you, because you don't know what you don't know, and stay abreast of the news and what's happening. It is impacting your business and your ability to operate. More importantly, stay the course, stay positive. You are amazing, and you need to continue to fight for and expand and grow your businesses. And check us out at nul.org. Sorry, I had to add that last.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Charles, for such a dynamic conversation. I think we could have done a separate webinar on technology and how to leverage it and how to utilize efficiencies and how do we reframe from DEI to the opportunities that are still out there. And so thank you all for planting the seed and just this great conversation today.
Great job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. And as I just remove some of our spotlights here, I just want to say, wow, thank you so much for that conversation. And a huge thank you to our panelists, our incredible panelists, for sharing their expertise and perspectives on the vital role Black entrepreneurs play in our economy. Additionally, on behalf of AEO, I also extend a sincere thank you to all of you for being part of this important conversation. Before we close, I will actually drop a link in the chat. I'd like to invite all of you to join us for our upcoming Equity and Opportunity for All webinars. So you can click those links and get updates directly on what AEO is up to. On March 19th, we'll be celebrating the contributions of women entrepreneurs in honor of Women's History Month. And on April 22nd, we will be exploring the contributions of returning citizen entrepreneurs and opportunities for support in recognition of Second Chance Month. So we've shared those links in the chat for you. Sign up for our newsletter, explore our upcoming events. We would love to see you again, and we will see you at the next one. So thank you again so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.